What's up YouTube, it's Alex and I'm back at it again for yet another video. So I know, this is insane, right? Doing so many videos like back to back. Well, you know, I gotta try to catch up because I missed so many videos, so, you know, thought might as well try to crank some videos out for you guys and break some more Marvel movies down. Because, you know, we got to get through all 23 movies so then we can talk about the newest thing that like just came out today. Because I will not be, as I said before, I will be not talking about anything new Marvel related until we have broken down all 23 Marvel movies. And so, you know, I am trying to get through these so that we kind of quickly so that we can talk about the new movie that was just the trailer was just released today. If you know what movie it is, I hope you are as hyped as I am about it, because, you know, I am just so stinking excited for this movie. But so today we will be breaking down another Marvel movie and continuing our journey into the MCU with I think it is the fifth movie, yes, fifth Marvel movie, which is Iron Man 2. I don't have a DVD form of it on me. I actually bought it from Redbox, so if you guys really want to see the DVD of it, I'll probably put a picture of it like right here, so you guys can see what one of the posters of it look like. Because, you know, well, I put a poster of it of every single Marvel movie on every video, so, you know, just so you guys can see the interesting posters that they got going on here. So, yeah. Random little thing. Iron Man 2 actually was the first sequel that Jon Favreau, I still don't know how to say his last name, the guy who plays Happy. This is his first sequel as both an actor and a director. I thought that was pretty interesting to just hear that he had never done any other like sequels. So let's dive right into this movie and start breaking it down and all the goodness that's in it. So this movie starts off in Russia, and it takes place like right during the press conference at the end of Iron Man 1, where Tony admits that he is Iron Man. We are then quickly introduced to the character of Ivan. I think it's Ivan Franko or Fanko. I cannot remember how to say his last name because it is Russian. Who at the very beginning of the movie we see his father actually die. His father's name is Anton Fanko. Fanko, whatever it is, I don't know. If you really want to tell me how to spell it, put it in the comments down below and tell me this is how you spell it and everything, because, you know, I don't know. We then see Ivan sit there, start pulling out blueprints for the arc reactor, which was destroyed in Iron Man 1 at the very end, and he actually is trying to miniaturize it just like Tony miniaturized it in the cave there, and Obadiah was angry about. And we end up seeing him starting to build a small miniature one. Then we see him actually finish his miniaturized arc reactor. And that is the last thing we see of him for that moment. We then jump 6 months into the future and see Iron Man actually jumping out of a plane right into the Stark Expo. There's actually a deleted scene from right here. It is actually of Tony freaking out because he is at such a high altitude in the plane, which when I first saw it, I questioned because I was like, if he's flying in the Iron Man suit, he's kind of always at that altitude. He's kind of always high up in the air, so why are you kind of hyperventilating? And also in that scene, Pepper Potts was seen trying to like calm him down and telling him he just needs to jump out of the plane. But he jumps right into the Stark Expo. The layout and buildings of the Stark Expo was actually based off the 1964 to 65 New York World Fair, which I will try to find a picture of the old World Fair, and I will put it right here If not, it's because I couldn't find any photos of this. Tony then ends up giving a speech at the expo about how America is safe because of him. We also then see... I lied. I think the World Fair was also mentioned in Captain America 1. I think that's like the little like expo type thing that they went to. I can't remember if in Captain America 1 if they directly call it the Stark Expo. I know they call it the Key to the Future. I think it is the Stark Expo because they do reference that it is called the Key of the Future in this movie. Tony then ends up showing a little video of his father, and his father is just basically introducing everyone to the Stark Expo and to the future that the Stark Expo will be bringing, since the Expo is supposed to be kind of bringing in like world's top minds to kind of solve random problems that are going on in the world. Then we see Tony actually sitting there testing the toxicity of his blood, which is at 15% at that time. We then see Tony leave the expo with his bodyguard, Happy, who's trying to like lead him through it. While leaving, we actually see Stanley's cameo. I will put a picture of it right here. His cameo is actually he's playing Larry King. This is actually apparently the very first time he's actually portrayed another like famous person. But I think he also portrayed Hugh Hefner. So I don't know. I don't know. Somewhere it said that was the first time, and I was like, that's really not. But you know, whatever. Tony ends up making it to his car, and we see this woman, and she tells Tony that he needs to go before the Senate to talk about the Iron Man suit. He then he asks Happy how far is it from NYC to Washington D.C. and he's like, this many miles, and he's like, okay, and he ends up just driving through the night. While before the Senate of Armed Services Committee to discuss the Iron Man suit and of its if it's a weapon or not. At this Senate, at this meeting, we meet the character of Senator Stern, who is actually very, very against like Tony having the Iron Man suit and is trying very, very hard to get Tony's technology and kind of take away the suit from him and kind of give it to the military. But we end up in a later movie, we actually see why was he trying so hard to try to get the technology. I will explain in that video. I will not reveal exactly why or what movie it is quite yet. We then meet the character of Justin Hammer, who is played by Sam Rockwell. Yes, if you have seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that is the guy who plays the president, I think, of the universe. I think in the movie he plays. He actually, Sam Rockwell actually auditioned to play the character of Tony in Iron Man 1, but actually did not get the part. Sadly, but he was offered the role of Justin Hammer in the next movie, and he immediately accepted it without reading the script at all. It was because he is actually friends with both the director and the screenwriter and trusted their ability that they wouldn't give him a crappy character. Hammer is brought in into this and because we see like a little like news clip of it saying that he is the primary systems contractor. Hammer ends up saying, we live in a world of grave threats. Threats that Mr. Stark will not always be able to foresee. I completely find this quote very interesting. because there is actually a great threat on the horizon that Tony does not actually see, and that really no one actually sees, and that is partly the attack that will be happening in Avengers 1 that we will discuss, and also the even greater threat that is introduced at the end of the Avengers movie. So I find that there's a lot of quotes in this movie that actually come back later in like later movies that kind of are like, whoa, I can't believe they kind of said that in this movie, and it's kind of brought back in here. We then see Rhodey appearing at the hearing. This time he's actually played by Don Cheadle. The originally it was actually supposed to be Terrence Howard, the guy who played Rhodey in Iron Man 1. If you still don't know, if you can't remember what he looks like, I will put a picture of him right here. He was supposed to come back, but ended up dropping out due to that him and Downey did not actually like each other. Apparently, it's also said that him and the director, Jon Favreau, did not get along together either, and that was kind of another reason why he was like, nah, I'm good. A funny thing is actually Don Cheadle thought Iron Man was actually a robot. There was no like human part of him until he ended up going and watching the 2008 movie just to see like what it was all about. I found that just very interesting that they did they casted him and he didn't know really what he was going for. I found that kind of funny. Sorry if the screen was shaky. My phone fell out of the holder here, so it's okay. We'll just keep continuing on. If you don't know who Don Cheadle is, I will put a picture of him right here too, so you guys can all see what he looks like. While there, Rhodey gives his report on Tony that he was kind of that supposedly he was writing during like Iron Man 1. It wasn't during Iron Man 1. It was during the 6 months that we didn't see, that just we were jumped forward into. Stern ends up asking Rhodey to read a specific part of his report. Rhodey then explains that reading one paragraph out of his report could look badly on Tony, and that it is not that it's not part of his final thought. What he is saying, it does not conclude to it. Stern's just and he's like, yeah, whatever, just read it for us. Rhodey then says, as he does not operate with any definable branch of government, Iron Man presents a potential threat to the security of both the nation and her interests. Rhodey then tries to put in there the benefits of actually having Iron Man, that they far outweigh the liabilities of Iron Man not being kind of put in check. Stern then tells him, Stern ends up actually getting really, really mad about it, and because he's just wanting Tony's suit so badly. Stern then shows images that Rhodey has kind of collected of people around the world trying to create copies of Tony's suits, and that because they're trying to create copies that they deem them as a potential threat. Tony then ends up taking a hold of the screen, showing the committee that the threats are not really as serious as they all think, because none of them actually really work. During one of the images, or because he was showing a lot of videos during it. During one of the videos, we actually see Justin Hammer sitting there trying to create one of his own copies. Tony then explains that he believes that most countries are about 5 to 10 years away from creating the technology of the Iron Man suit, and that but Hammer Industries is actually about 20 years away. We then see jump back to Russia and see Ivan working on the first looks of his Whiplash suit. I can't remember exactly I can't remember the name of the guy who plays Whiplash. If you really want to know what he looks like, I will probably put a picture of him right here, or if not, I will put it in later in the movie. In this video. We then go and jump back to Tony's house into his garage or / workroom. We also see that Tony is drinking this special. I think he tells Pepper that it's chlorophyll, which is actually something found in plants that kind of helps them live. I'm pretty sure, I did learn this in bio, but that was quite a few weeks ago. So, it's supposed to try to counteract the symptoms from his new arc reactor that he creates. His new arc reactor actually looks like this. It's very different from the one in Iron Man 1. Well, both the ones in Iron Man 1. Because I'm pretty sure he actually creates that one directly after Iron Man 1. And yeah. Jarvis then tells Tony that another core has been depleted. Tony then takes out the arc reactor, and a core pops itself out, and he certainly replaces it. Jarvis then tells Tony that he is running out of both time and options for his device, for the arc reactor, and that the arc reactor that is keeping him alive is also killing him at the same time. He also is trying to get Tony to tell Pepper about that he is dying, as Pepper is walking into the workroom. Tony and Pepper then start walking around the workroom talking about random things. Then at the end of it, Tony's sister, and he's like, how would you just run the company? And she's like, I'm trying to. And he's like, I just want to make, that he basically just wants to make her CEO of Stark Industries. We then jump back to Russia again, and see Ivan getting a package from a shady dude. And in the package, it is a fake passport. I can't remember what it's. I don't know if it actually says what his name is in it. If it is, I think it's in Russian, as of course because they're in Russia. And we also see that he has a ticket for the Grand Prix. I don't know. It's some racing thing. I don't watch it. If you watch it, good for you. If you really want to comment on how I said the name of it, put it in the comments down below and comment on how I said it. We then see Tony sitting there working out with Happy, and he tells Pepper that he's actually on Happy Time. Pepper then tells him that he has to come over and come sign some papers to transfer the company over to her name so that she can be the CEO. During this is the first time that we see Scarlett Johansson's character of Natasha Romanoff. That is actually the movie that the movie trailer that just came out is her movie. I'm really, really excited about that. But we will discuss that at a later date and discuss the whole trailer. But she actually first introduces herself to Tony as Natalie Rushman because she is a spy, and so she has to take different names. He ends up sitting there, and he's trying to kind of intimidate her. Tony then tells Happy to give her a lesson. Tony then goes and sits next to Pepper, and Pepper sits there and she's like, "Oh, I believe that she will be a very expensive sexual harassment lawsuit coming our way," because he was kind of Google-eyeing her, giving her the googly eyes. There we go. Tony then actually asks her how to spell her last name. She tells him. He sits there and he Googles her and sees all the languages that she speaks, including I think it's Latin. He ends up asking Pepper who speaks Latin, and she's like, "It's a dead language. No one really speaks Latin. But you can write it." Then he ends up seeing some photos of her doing some modeling in Tokyo. And he actually kind of comments that to Pepper of, "Oh, look at all these the modeling job that she had." We then see Happy sit there because they're in like a wrestling ring. He waits for the exact moment that she turns her head and isn't quite looking at him anymore. And he goes and tries to like punch her and says, "Never take your eye off your opponent." And while he goes and tries to take her down, as he goes and tries to punch her, she ends up sitting there and taking him down. Tony then, after she has done that, she's kind of earned his respect, and sits there and he officially just signs over his company to her. To Pepper. Then we jump to right into to Monaco, where the World Grand Prix. I don't know. I still don't know how to say it. If you just comment down below, if you just hate how I am saying it. We then see Tony going to like a rich person party. We also see Happy is actually carrying a briefcase. If you look at it, it is actually handcuffed to him. They actually refer to this as the football. This is apparently also the same kind of like nickname that they give the briefcase that the president has, that has the missile launch codes. At this party, we actually hear Pepper say, Mr. Musk." This is actually, we see Elon Musk in a special cameo. If you don't know who Elon Musk is, where have you been for the past few years? He's the meme lord right now. If you don't know what he looks like, I'll put a picture of him right here. He is the guy who has who created, I think he created Tesla cars. He also created, I can't remember what the new truck is that he just came out with that everyone's commenting and telling him that it looks stupid. He also created, I think it's SpaceX. If it's not SpaceX, put his space company down below telling me what it is, because I can't remember exactly what it is, because he is the guy who shot a Tesla car up into space and had a little dummy in it. And that I actually thought that thing was pretty cool, because if you look at the screen of that car, it says "Do not panic" as a callback to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But moving on. We then see Justin Hammer, and we also see Christine Everhart. Yes, I told you she was going to make a comeback. She's from the first movie. She's the one that ends up sleeping with Tony at the very, very beginning of the movie. But I told you she has a brief cameo in here in that video, and you all didn't believe me, now did you? Hammer then tells Tony and Pepper that Christine's doing a big story on him for Vanity Fair. Hammer and Tony sit there and kind of make fun of each other, and Christine actually asks, "Is this the first time you're seeing each other since the Senate meeting?" And Tony just tells him, "Right, yeah, it is." We then jump to Tony sitting there checking his blood toxicity, which is now jumped up to 53%. He then sits there, looks at himself in the mirror and says, "What do you want to do?" And he gets the wonderful idea that he is going to go drive in the Grand Prix. We then see the race starts, and we see Ivan actually dressed as I want to say he is a medical personnel, or like a, I don't know, like mechanic. If I'm wrong, put it in the comments down below telling me exactly what is he supposed to be dressed as, because clearly I don't know. But as the race is already starting to go on, and everyone has seen that Tony is going to be driving his race car, we then see Ivan end up walking out onto the course and like pulls his shirt out, like off, and reveals his whiplash suit. And he sits there and he like whiplashes one of the race cars that is like coming towards him, and ends up cutting the front tire off, and it goes flying and all that greatness. We then see Pepper sit there and ask Natalie Rushman, where is Happy? She needs Happy. Happy then shows up and shows her the briefcase, and they head out. Then they end up rushing onto the course, starting to try to find Tony. Tony then ends up driving right in front of Ivan and gets his race car actually cut in half. We then see, we jump back to Happy and Pepper sitting there trying to unlatch unhandcuff Happy from the football, and also trying to find where is Tony. Ivan then we then go back to Ivan and Tony. Ivan then goes over to go kill Tony in the car because he believes that he's still sitting in there. But we see that Tony isn't there. Then we see Tony sit there and attempt to fight Ivan hand to hand. It ends up, not working out so well because Ivan has a weapon, and he does not. But luckily, Happy comes to his rescue by ramming the car into Ivan, and does it quite a few more times to try to either kill Ivan or just at least knock him out. This is actually the first time we hear Tony refer to the case as the football, because he actually says, "Give me the football," to Pepper. We then see that the case actually has an Iron Man suit built in to it, and he suits up and has a battle, like a little mini battle with Ivan, where Tony ends up winning and takes Ivan's arc reactor out and crushes it. Ivan is then taken away by the police, and we see Hammer still at the party, seeing the story on the news, and sits there and smiles at it, and it's kind of foreshadowing what will later come. We then see Tony in a French prison going and visiting Ivan. He then tells him that the police said he only needs 5 minutes with him to talk. We then go and see Ivan sitting there wearing absolutely nothing except for his underwear. In this scene, there was actually supposed to be there was a tattoo of Loki on. Here we go. This is the guy's name, Mickey Rourke. I think that's his name. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, either he has a tattoo of Loki on himself, or they put it on him and they actually went and digitally removed the tattoo because apparently it was on his neck. They removed it during post-production because the producers felt that it might be confusing to fans and make them believe that there was a connection between Whiplash and Lenore de Scott, which there is absolutely not any connection between the two of them. They are from two different movies. Tony and him then end up sitting there talking about Ivan's suit and how he can make it better. Ivan then tells Tony that Tony comes from a family of murderers and thieves, and that that Tony is just clearly trying so hard to try to rewrite his own history. He then reveals that his father is Anton Vanko. Tony then says, "I don't even know who that is." Ivan then tells him that that Anton is the reason why Tony is alive. Then Ivan says what I think, and I think a lot of other people have kind of realized it, a very kind of important quote, or something that you should kind of keep in the back of your head about this, because it just was so big and comes back into a later Marvel movie, and it was oh my god, that was an interesting quote. And the quote is that Ivan says to him, "If you can make God bleed, the people will cease to believe in him, and there will be blood in the water, and the sharks will come." I will explain this quote and why it is such a big thing in a later video. Probably in the video that this quote kind of comes back into, and kind of makes it really big, oh my god, I can't believe that was said, type thing. Ivan then tells Tony that palladium in the chest is a painful way to die, revealing that Ivan does kind of realize that Tony is dying, and that it's the arc reactor that's kind of doing it to him. Tony then just ends up just leaving. We then see him and Pepper on a plane, heading home. Pepper's sitting there watching the news, which Senator Stern is sitting there talking about how Tony was wrong, from him saying that no one would be able to possess the technology for another 5 to 10 years. And saying he's like, someone created a copy of it now and it works. Look at it. Tony then mutes the TV and tries to get Pepper to not go home, because he really just doesn't want to, because he knows that he's dying. We then jump back to Ivan chilling in his cell, his French cell. He then gets his meal, where he gets a little note that says, "Enjoy the potatoes." He then lifts up the potatoes and sees that it's actually a bomb. We then see that he gets a cellmate, and see that his cellmate actually has the exact same prisoner number. This actually is for a specific reason why. It's later revealed in the movie. Why did they have him have the same number? Ivan ends up then sitting there beating the guy up, and puts the mashed potatoes on the wall, and then a guard comes by and gives him a key to get out of his cell, and he hits the button on the bomb, so that because it gives him 30 seconds, I think. He then sits there and he starts walking out, and he is stopped by a guard. He ends up killing the guard, and then there's the explosion of the potatoes behind him, and the whole prison ends up going into a panic. As he's sitting there trying to escape, he goes he starts going down some stairs, sees that there's a lot of guards at the bottom, then starts going upstairs and gets kind of taken by some guards that aren't really guards, and gets a bag put over his head and thrown into a van. The van ends up takes him to go meet Justin Hammer, who is all too happy to meet him, because he is very, very excited to meet him. Hammer then proposes an offer to help him take down Tony, in exchange that he will that Ivan will help him. They end up shaking on it and agree that he will help him. We then jump back to Tony's house, where Pepper and Natalie are actually on the phone trying to protect the company, because a lot of people are kind of bashing the company. Rhodey then walks in and asks where Tony is. We then jump down to the basement, to the garage, and see that Tony is sitting in one of his cars, running through databases, looking up Anton Vanko, and seeing that kind of what his backstory is, seeing that he was a Soviet physicist who came to the United States and was accused of espionage and was immediately deported in 1967. Jarvis also then tells him that Ivan is a physicist who was convicted for selling Soviet era weapons and weaponized grade I can't say it. Plutonium. I know I said that wrong. To Pakistan. While saying this, we actually see a newspaper picture of Ivan being arrested. This is actually a real photo of Mickey Reek, or Rook, whatever, however you say his name, actually being arrested on drug charges in real life. Rhodey then comes in and tells Tony that he needs to get upstairs and get a hold of the situation that is going on and help Pepper and Natalie out. He also tells Tony that he's been on the phone all day with the National Guard, trying to stop them from coming in and taking his suits. Rhodey then has to help Tony get to his desk so that he can replace the plutonium core. He then asks Tony about the high-tech crossword puzzle on his neck. Tony then tells him that it's road rash. Rhodey tells him that he doesn't have to do this all by himself. He can have help from either Rhodey, Pepper, or anyone really. We then jump to Queens, New York. This is actually where Peter Parker lives, but, that is not why we are jumping to Queens. We are jumping to Queens to see Hammer's factory. This factory is actually a real factory. It is Elon Musk's SpaceX facility. The extras that we see in the background are actually SpaceX employees that just happened to be there that day. Justin Hammer also reveals why Ivan's cellmate had to have the same exact prison number, was so that it would make it look like Ivan was killed. Hammer then shows Ivan the Iron Man copies that he has tried. Ivan then hacks into into Hammer's computer, and we see him go and look into the info about the suits. Ivan then breaks one of the suits, trying to figure out what I don't even know what he was trying to figure out on it. Then he then tells Hammer he could help him make them better. Hammer tells him that he basically wants the suits to look amazing, a lot better than Tony Stark's suits, and that he would want from the creation he would want them to put him into the Pentagon, and so it would be like such a intense breakthrough. We then go back to Tony's house, which is now Tony's birthday. He then asks Natalie what would she do if it was her last birthday, since he is dying. She then tells him she would do whatever she wanted to with whoever she wanted to. We then see him sitting there actually hanging out in the Iron Man suit, drunk. Pepper then we see Rhodey actually on the phone telling them that the government, that within 24 hours Iron Man will be back on watch, that it's just Tony's birthday, so that you kind of want to go all out. Pepper then shows Rhodey a drunk Tony in the Iron Man suit. Pepper then goes and tries to end the party early because she knows that he can get into a lot of trouble, and so can Rhodey. because Rhodey put in so much faith in Tony. Tony then ends up telling the crowd that the party is over, but the party had been over for him for about half an hour, and the after party would be starting shortly. He then drunkenly fires his Iron Man repulsors on his hands, and shatters some glass. And then people end up starting to throw things in the air for him to shoot. We then see Rhodey quickly run down to the workroom and quickly put on the Mark I suit, and then comes back up to the party, telling everyone to get out. Tony then gets the DJ at the party to play some music so that he can beat Rhodey up. He then knocks Rhodey down and tells him to put the suit back where he found it. They then end up having a big old fight, which ends up with a big giant blast of both of them firing the repulsors at each other. At the same time, we then see that Tony was kind of blown back from that and is kind of hazy because he is drunk. We then see Rhodey sitting there flying off with the suit. And next thing we know, it's the next morning. We see him flying to a Air Force base. Also, if you look right behind Rhodey at the base, while everyone's gathering around him, you will actually see the almost the exact same plane that we see in Captain Marvel, that people are trying to figure out if it was the picture of the Valkyrie or not. So this kind of confirms that the U.S. is trying to kind of make a Valkyrie-type plane, and that it is kind of brought into now, trying to make a current updated version of it. We then see Tony sitting there eating some donuts in the sign of Randy's Donuts, which is in the shape of a donut. Nick Fury shows up and tells him, "Sir, can you please exit the donut?" He then comes down and tells him that he doesn't want to join his super secret boy band. Then Natalie ends up walking in a SHIELD uniform. Fury then tells Tony that her name is actually Agent Romanoff. She then tells him that once SHIELD knew that he was ill, she was immediately signed to him by Fury. Tony asks what do they want from him. Fury tells him that he actually has been a bigger problem, that he actually has a bigger problem down in the Southwest region, and that he wasn't the center of his universe. That problem in the Southwest region, I will actually talk about that in a minute, probably a few minutes from now, of what that actually was, because it is revealed in this movie, because it is to set up the next movie in the MCU. Natalie then gives Tony a little shot of lithium dioxide that kind of takes care of the high-tech crossword puzzle on his neck. He tells them that he's been looking for a solution to fix the arc reactor, but he hasn't found any. Fury then tells him he hasn't tried all of them. We then see Ivan working on Justin Hammer's suit. Instead of just making them better, he ends up putting a robotic head, making it a drone. We then see Rhodey showing the suit to a general. The general then tells Rhodey to get Hammer, to weaponize it, and just look at it. We then see Fury and Tony hanging out at his in his trash kitchen. Fury then tells Tony that Howard said that the arc reactor was a stepping stone for something bigger. For something greater, actually. Fury also tells Tony that his father said that Tony was the only one with the means and knowledge to finish the arc reactor idea and what would later come. Tony then doesn't believe Fury because he believes that his father was happy when he shipped him off to boarding school and didn't really like Tony. Fury then reveals that Howard actually was a founding member of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that clearly Tony didn't really know his father as well as he thinks he does. We then see Coulson show up and basically tells him that he is Tony's babysitter, and telling him that he could not leave the premises and that all communication has been cut off with the outside world. We then see the military sitting there taking apart the suit. And Hammer comes in offering up a bunch of firepower in exchange for the suit. And they end up agreeing to it. We then see Tony going through a bunch of his dad's old stuff, trying to find out the answer that will help him with his heart. We see him sitting there watching films that his father had left. All the films are basically his father just shooting the film that was shown at the very beginning of the movie, except for one. In the very last film, his father actually leaves him a message. The message says, "Tony, you were too young to understand this now, so I thought I would put it on film for you. I built this for you, and someday you'll realize it represents a whole lot more than just people's inventions. It represents my life's work. This is the key to the future. I am limited by the technology of my time, but one day you'll figure this out, and when you do, you will change the world. And what is and always will be my greatest creation is you." So that is revealing that Tony's view on his father just hated him was completely incorrect. That his father really saw something in Tony and decided to leave his ideas for the future for Tony. We then see Tony sitting there driving his car and stops to go pick up some strawberries. He then shows up with strawberries in hand to go see Pepper. He then sees a miniature model of the Expo and then leaves it and walks over to go talk to Pepper about just random things. Yeah. She then notices that he brought strawberries for her. Then she tells him, did he know that the one thing that she is allergic to in this whole world is strawberries? And they say it in unison. We then see Happy and Natalie come in. Natalie then, then tells him that Tony needs to take his personal items and just leave because he doesn't run the company anymore. So why does he really need to be there anymore? He then ends up only taking one thing, and it is the model of the Expo. He speeds home to try to go, and he gets Jarvis to take a scan of it and makes a model. He then looks at the model, flips the model up, right, so that it's kind of like this. And he sits there and he asks Jarvis, what does this look like? Unlike an atom. If it was, the nucleus would be right here, and points to wherever the nucleus would have been. He also then tells Jarvis Jarvis actually ends up telling him that he has discovered a new element, or rediscovered a new element. He then successfully finds. Jarvis also tells him, Tony, that it is a possible solution for the current arc reactor in his chest. Tony then sits there and tells all his robots that it is time to get their hard hats on. They are going back into construction mode. Tony then starts setting up the whole thing to try to synthesize the element. During that time, Coulson ends up coming down, tells him, "You broke the perimeter." Coulson then ends up pulling out like the old shield prototype of Captain America, and he's like, "Do you know what this is?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I need to kind of level everything out." Coulson then tells him that he has been reassigned to New Mexico, where Fury, that is the exact thing that Fury was talking about, of I have bigger problems in the Southwest region, which actually connects to the next movie, which is Thor. Yeah. We then see Tony sitting there trying to synthesize the element, which he ends up successfully doing. He then takes the synthesized element and creates a new arc reactor. We then jump to Ivan creating a new reactor for himself in secret. He starts talking to Hammer on the phone. Hammer tells him that he's with Senator Stern and that they wanted to stop by to see the new drones. Ivan tells him that he can do presentation, not demonstration. One has no fly, no suit, no shoot. The other one just has a salute. Ivan then, then we also see him sitting there working on his new version of the Whiplash suit. Justin then comes in furious with his few of his guards and takes all of Ivan's stuff. Justin then tells him, "How do you feel?" "This is how I feel. You see these guards, they're going to babysit you while I'm at the expo." Tony then gets a call a little bit later from Ivan, and we see that the guards are actually dead behind him. Tony then tries to find where is Ivan at, and is unsuccessful trying to find him. He then sits there, takes the new arc reactor, puts it into himself, and tells Jarvis to start creating the new suit. We then see Pepper and Natalie arrive at the expo for Hammer's presentation. He then presents the new drones that will take the place of the military. At the head of it, Rhodey in the new War Machine suit. Tony then comes flying in, and Tony tells Rhodey that Hammer is actually working with Ivan. Ivan then takes control of the suits. Of the suits, and sets them all off to go try to hunt Tony. Then Natasha ends up going and getting Hammer to tell her where Ivan is, and he tells her that he is at his factory. She then gets a ride from Happy to Hammer Industries. During this, Tony is sitting there starting to take out some of the Hammer drones, and during this, we actually see one single kid wearing an Iron Man helmet. Tony then swoops in, destroys the Hammer drone, and flies off and says, "Nice job, kid." This kid is actually said to be young Peter Parker. It has been confirmed by Marvel and by Tom Holland, who plays Peter Parker. We then see Tony sitting there trying to take out all of the other drones and trying to get Rhodey's suit, give it kind of back to him. We then see now it's Black Widow because she's in her Black Widow outfit. And Happy's sitting there fighting Hammer's guards, trying to get to Ivan. They then end up seeing that Ivan is gone and left. But Romanoff then reboots Rhodey's suit. Romanoff then tells Tony that there's more drones coming in, and nice job on the new arc reactor. Tony and Rhodey then fight all the drones, trying to destroy all of them. Hammer is then arrested because of Pepper called the cops. We then see Whiplash in his new suit come in with big electric whips, and it is actually a Iron Man suit type thing. Tony and Rhodey then sit there and fight him off. In the first drafts, actually, Whiplash escapes at the end. In the second draft, he died. And in the final version of it, his fate is actually left undecided and unknown. In case they needed him to kind of play a minor villain in a later movie. Ivan then reveals that all the drones are actually rigged to blow. Tony then goes and swoops down and saves Pepper and brings her on top of some rooftops where they end up sharing a kiss. These apartment buildings actually overlooking Flushing Meadows in New York. This is actually the area where director Jon Favreau lived as a child. There we also see Rhodey, who tells them that he to get a roof. He then tells Tony that he needs to take the suit because his car was destroyed. We then see Tony going to an abandoned building to go meet with Fury. If you look at all the maps and locations on the monitors behind him, they correspond to events from different movies. And they also have their news report from the Hulk movie. We then see the location, a location in Africa, which is actually a reference to Black Panther, who actually does not make his debut for quite a few movies. We then a few more locations refer to Thor, Captain America. We then see Tony grab a folder saying Avengers Initiative. Fury then tells him he doesn't think that portrays to him anymore. It makes Tony read Romanoff's assessment of him. Tony then tells Fury that him and Rhodey are receiving a medal and need a presenter. Fury then sends Senator Stern for the job. And the movie closes with AC/DC's Highway to Hell. There is actually a post-credit scene which shows Coulson in New Mexico looking at a crater with a hammer in the middle of it, saying, "We found it, sir." This is most likely telling it to Fury, and sets up the next movie, which is Thor. So yeah, that is it. That is the whole movie broken down for you guys, all just combined. I keep noticing that all my videos are just getting shorter and shorter, so I must be talking faster. So, you know, that's pretty good, right? Right? Yeah. So, I will, if you guys have any questions, like I said in the Hulk movie breakdown, leave it in the comments down below. I'll probably do a video if I get enough questions. If you just have a random comment that you want to say, put it down, say something. If you like this video, hit that like button, and if you are not subscribed to me, hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you can get notifications when I make a new video for you guys. Other than that, I will catch you guys on the next video. See ya.